Hey, Rod. I was reviewing the stuff that's been written so far. What is the citation that ends in section 1033? What is the whole citation?
Are we going out of order?
No, I'm just asking now so that I don't have to waste meeting time when we're actually having a meeting.
Oh, good. Good idea.
As far as I know, we have one more minute till the meeting.
There you go. See if Brad can respond to this.
I've been trying to find the statute.
Uh-huh.
You're on mute.
Anyway, somebody can appeal, Ernie?
Well, I just want to know what the statute, what it is. I mean, I don't want to, right now, I don't want to discuss it because, the meeting hasn't started, but I just wanted to know what that statute actually is, because it keeps on referring to section 1033, and there's a bunch of sections 1033 in the statutes.
Oh, well, the key thing is that section 1033 and 1032 under appeals in this is that numbering system is specific to this draft, but
Oh, it's not from what statute 1033 or something?
no.
Oh, okay, all right.
This is section 1033 of the document that you're looking at.
Okay. Never mind.
It's basically a four-digit numbering system, which will become apparent when you see the rest of the document because it's that big. But the appeal rights of an applicant or an interested party, I can find that in.
Yeah, no. Now that you've explained it, I see a lot. I'll have to just flip through it now. But I was going at it page by page, so I don't even know if we'll get that far tonight.
Chapter 117, and I think it's the sections to do with. I'll get to it. Yeah. Okay. So it's subchapter 11, section 4465 of 24 VSA.
Okay. Well, that's it.
Thanks for the quiz question. That was good.
Yeah.
Do we have a quorum thing?
We're waiting for Melissa or Leah, who we are, and I'm expecting.
Laura is first to make a quorum. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just make some notes here while we're getting ready.
Mhm.
Is Jeff still with us? Did Jeff go away?
Jeff Goodrich is there. I don't see him, but I see his name.
Yeah.
And he just unmuted. Jeff, you there?
I am here.
Good.
Hi, Jeff. Sorry, I didn't get your message until really late. I'll try and explain the convoluted rules from the Dan interim town manager about access to the building under town managers. Under planning director report or something like that if you want. But you can see that there's this thing called public access kiosk, which is a computer in a multi-purpose room that enables public access to the meeting.
Yeah, that's an
Okay,
improvement. That's an improvement.
Looks like Leah and Melissa are both here.
Everybody's here, so I think we can start. Now, welcome everybody. How are you all? I can't believe it's December already. Glad we're all together. Sorry for the mishap last month, but it's good to be here again. Jeff Lubell had a work emergency, but the rest of us are all here, so that's good. First item on our agenda is to approve the agenda. So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thanks, Ernie. Second from Leah. All in favor or any discussion? I see, good, 5 hands.
I have a question.
Okay, let's hear the question. Go ahead, Jeff.
So in terms of the agenda,
Mhm.
I'm sorry. What did you say, Jackie?
No, just go ahead. Just waiting for you to talk.
Well, then, let me talk. So there's this thing on the agenda that talks about, well, let me restate it. It looks like Rod put a bunch of stuff together, but I don't see anything in the minutes that the planning commission, where the planning commission said, let's ask Rod to put this stuff together. I'd like to make that point. I'd further like to make the point that we don't need commentary from members of the planning commission, including the chair or the staff, and I'm not saying Rod has done that because he hasn't recently, when we're making comments.
Anything else, Jeff? Okay, I see you're on mute, so I guess you're finished. Leah, is that a hand raised? Or, okay, I see a little hand on your box, but okay. A new symbol has popped up, okay. All right, any other comments on the agenda? If so, we have a motion on the table by Ernie, a second by Leah. All in favor of approving the agenda? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hands.
I vote
Jeff?
no.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. We'll go on to public comment. I don't see any members of the, oh, wait, there's Linda. I see Linda. Linda popped up. Any public comment?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Then we can move right into the land use regulations, administrative procedures. Back in October when we were together and before that as well. This has been on our timeline of things to do. Rod has put together this package for us. Thank you very much. And I just want to say I really appreciate in the back of the package where you noted some of the changes and the rationale and how this was responding to the DRB members that we listened to in September. And some of their hopes and dreams for the new zoning regs. So thanks for including that section, Rod. It was extremely helpful. Guess maybe go around the table. Are there any immediate questions people would like to raise? And then Rod, if you want to make some comments on this, that you think are important for us to hear, we can go to that. Rod, go ahead, Ernie. Do you have any immediate comments?
Well, just sort of as a sort of ground rule, not that I'm asking about a ground rule, is when will be a good time? Because I've gone through about first 10 or 15 pages, and I have a lot to say about it, but I don't want to mess up the flow of the meeting right now. So I don't imagine that we're supposed to be going through every single correction one by one, each section by section. But I don't know how we're going to do it. So maybe, I guess what I'm asking is, might be a good idea to come up with some sort of ground rules of how we're going to actually approach this, because there's 50 pages already. I don't know. This doesn't look like it's complete even. So it's 50 pages.
No, this is simply the administrative section, but yes, that's
Right.
it. So let's hold that thought. That's a good question. Brian?
Thanks, Ernie. I appreciate it. And I want to have the time to go through each point. Can I just share my reflection of where we are in the process?
Sure.
And sense from other folks if they have a similar perception. And that's, this is like almost low-hanging fruit in terms of the rules that we're going to be reviewing. Not to say they're not consequential, but that this is like where we're least equipped to have a real meaningful impact. But I also understand that we're not going to be approving any changes piecemeal, Ernie, and that it's a part of a wider effort to look kind of top to bottom at the regs. And so I don't feel pressure to say each and every line is perfect tonight, or else I'll never get to see it again. I'm viewing this as, this is my first chance to see where Rod's head is at, reflecting the DRB's input, and that will be just the first step in a longer and more comprehensive process. Am I understanding that the same way other people understand it?
That's my understanding. Others have an opinion? Mhm.
So Jackie, I see both Linda and then Jeff's virtual hands are raised. I think Linda's was first. I don't know if, when you're ready to turn.
Sure, yeah, let me,
You may want
Yeah,
to take commissioners first.
yeah, let's take Jeff first. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so my perspective is based on what the Vermont statutes annotated suggest with respect to our responsibilities. And I just don't, I may be out of the loop, but I'm not aware that the Planning Commission has delegated its responsibilities to Rod. I'm not saying anything about Rod's talents, knowledge, et cetera, but we have a responsibility to create the rules. And it is my hope that before Rod proceeds with anything, we actually engage him in that process with a motion that stands on the record. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, any other comments before general comments? Ernie, you had another comment?
I think Linda had her hand up before me.
Sure, yeah, I'm trying to hear from commissioners first, but.
All right. This actually, I feel the administrative stuff is extremely important because I think that's where a lot of what my problems I had while I was on the DRB, and keep in mind, I think I was the first person chosen to be on the DRB, and I was on it for 15 years. So I'm I think I'm very well versed in the problems, the administrative problems that we faced under the current regulations. They were ambiguous. They were often conflicting, and I don't want to ever see that again. They weren't clear. We were often having to turn to the town plan to interpret them. We can't have that any longer. And so I think that it is important to take a fine-tooth comb to any of these regulations. That's what I just don't want to see any subjectivity. I don't want to see anything that can indicate any kind of favoritism or anything like that. So this is where that is going to be dealt with, is in this section.
Linda Cook, you'd like to make a comment? Go ahead.
Well, I need to apologize. I dropped my pen on the phone, hung up, and I was trying to just get back into the meeting.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Just one
So-
other observation I would make is, go
Jackie?
ahead, Leah, go ahead.
Yeah, just some comments that I appreciated. This in the packet, I've read through it. There's a lot to review. I echo Ernie's sentiment of, or my interpretation of a sentiment of finding the appropriate time and format to discuss. I'm very curious about the zoning administrator role. Just as far as the impact on the town, I'll be very curious as how that's written in this document and how it is manifested, and discussing it more as needed. I do also have some editing comments, which it sounds like might be done in a different way at a different time, but I'll wait for those instructions.
Okay. Melissa, anything you wanted to add? Okay. Okay, so a couple things I also wanted to say, because Ernie, I think, you talked about the difficulty of using the last regulations, and what we heard from Arlene and from Richard Sucker and Don McCabe when we spoke with them in September. The constant references to statutes and rules or whatever without actually articulating them in the document was causing a lot of pain. And one of the improvements that I saw here is that is no longer the case. Things are spelled out in terms of the procedures so that you can follow the procedures without having to reference different pages in the document. So that was one of the things were asked for. Richard Stucker talked about how to enforcement and what are the penalties, and that goes into I think much clearer detail here about what the penalties could be. So I see a very well organized document. It's easy to read, and one of the in terms of process, a couple of things I've heard now. We have specific edits that might be helpful to Rod. I think those could be done in a different way. Submitting those online, I think, is a better way than trying to talk about the uhs, ands, or thes, or commas, or whatever. If it's substantive, we should talk about it here. I think getting the feedback from the people from the DRB on these administrative procedures would be extremely helpful. And that's something that I would be interested in hearing from. I'm not sure what to make of Jeff's comments. I don't know what you're implying, Jeff. Are you thinking that we're going to sit down and write these administrative procedures? That's kind of the feeling I get. As in all my time on the Planning Commission, that's not been our role. So whether it was Phil or Rod, that isn't what we did. We always offered comments and suggestions. So I'm not sure how to handle that. Ernie, you had your hand up? You're on mute, Ernie. You're on mute, Ernie.
I'll address what you were just talking about first. I wasn't originally going to, and then I'll get to what I originally intended. I think that, never mind, I won't do that. What I wanted to say is, I expected that we would actually have a much bigger role in writing the regulations. I mean, keep in mind, I have experience with writing statutes and so on in the state of Vermont. So this is really kind of within my wheelhouse. And I'm not interested, I understand, I agree with you about, the minor grammatical stuff. Is not really appropriate to taking up meeting time, if I understand you correctly. And you said we would talk about the substantive stuff, but there is a lot of substantive stuff I've already found. And it's the stuff that, I have, I think I've made it clear that I intended to be involved with the writing of the regulations since even before I was chosen to be on the Planning Commission. So that is what I intend to do one way or another.
Maybe we could talk, I think it would be helpful to hear some examples with the content that's in front of us.
Okay, well, right now, starting with 1001.1 B. What I would want to make sure is, for instance, in parentheses 1, it is, well, actually, that whole thing, I'm concerned that, unlike, I don't want to ever see again where one person has the power to determine how development is going to be shaped in the town. And right now, a lot of what all of this zoning administrative thing does, this is an overall look at it from what I see, allows one person to have too much power when there should be development review board review of a lot more than this. I also see language, way too much permissive language. The zoning administrator may do this, may do that. From my point of view, every single place that you see may there should be a very clear set of conditions of why he may do that. And outside those set of conditions, he shall not do whatever it is, okay? Every place I see a may should have a very tightly defined list of what may be done, or what the conditions are that may
Mhm.
occur. Otherwise, there should be everywhere that's listed as a may should be a shall or a shall not, one of the two. That's my first observation, sort of global observation. But for instance, there's one where it says it's number 1004A about no, it's wrong. 1005A, where it's talking about that the zoning administrator may hire qualified professionals to provide independent technical review, et cetera. If that's to help the DRB or to make a decision, or if that's to help the planning commission fine tune regulations, yes, but it doesn't say that. It just, the language it says here looks like that he could hire that kind of help to help an applicant. As far as I'm concerned, an applicant is an adverse party, always. That's why you have regulations. You don't have regulations for parties that are not adverse. And so whenever we see any sort of regulation, it has to, we should not, the zoning administrator works for the town. He does not work for the applicant at all. The applicant can go hire counsel or an engineer or something like that to help them. And those people, those specialists should know how to interpret these regulations. But it is what I saw numerous times when I was on the DRB was our zoning administrator would actually help applicants circumvent the regulations. And I don't want to ever see that again. And I'm not saying Rod would ever do that. Matter of fact, I have high confidence he wouldn't, but I have no confidence that he's going to be in the job forever. So these regulations have to be written for someone who's not Rod.
Mhm.
And that means there has to be very clear delineation of what can and what cannot be done, and that nothing by the zoning administrator. He can, of course, give out the papers, say these are the regulations, but he cannot interpret them for them so that they can figure out how to make the regulations work for themselves. That's their job. The town should not be paying anybody to help do that stuff. That's the purpose of lawyers and engineers and any other people that help developers and applicants, just even single homeowners do this stuff. And that's what I see here is a lot of language allows way too much subjective opinion by the zoning administrator, and that's all got to go. And I see it in a lot of places, and I've only, like I said, looked at about the first 15 pages. I have no reason to believe that, it's not pervasive. And that's not necessarily that there's anyone's being nefarious or anything like that. I just happen to know how to write a statute and make it stick. And this is not how you do that.
Jeff Goodrich, you had a comment?
Yeah. Thanks, Jackie. My hand was up before Ernie, but I don't know what to say about what you said with respect to my comments. I acknowledge that none of the planning commission members have, as far as I know, beyond maybe Ernie, experience with respect to land use regulations, the law, that sort of thing in this context. What I'm trying to address is what the law says, what the role of the planning commission is in the context of the law. And I would like to agree with Ernie in the context of let's define roles. Let's define, but before I go down that road, nor am I aware that there's a single DRB member that understands land use regulations with regard to the law, including Arlene, as you said, and my beloved friend, Richard Stucker, whom I love dearly. So the broader question to me is, what does the law say? What's the role of the planning commission? And can we agree about how to proceed? Can we make a motion about how to proceed before there's unilateral conduct that follows? I'd like to follow up on several comments that were made, including I do not see applicants as adverse parties. I just want to disagree with Ernie on this front. I would like to say that as a zoning administrator, in my experience with Rod, I think he does a decent job with respect to the regulations on behalf of interpreting the rules, et cetera, for applicants. I would like us to get back on course to embrace a scenario in which we together decide how we're going to proceed before anything proceeds, which I think is what Ernie is fundamentally saying.
Brian, you had a hand up before?
Yeah, you know, I'm happy to formalize the process of reviewing and updating each section up front. I don't think that's a bad practice. We hadn't sketched that whole calendar out yet. I don't have any objection to doing that up front. And identifying those roles, you know, no one has voted to take away anyone's authority, and anyone who wants, as per our bylaws, can put together their own draft of this or any other chapter and put it on an agenda. And Rod's taken the initiative to look at this one, on which we've had substantive discussion with the DRB recently. It's a set of proposals for discussion. That's how I look at it. I think we can move forward in discussing this one at the same time that we formalize the process, both for the rest of the parts and then how this fits into that. But I would say, just like on a personal note, I think this group has always worked well when people take the initiative and take on work, and that process hasn't been subverted. That possibility hasn't been shut down. And so, Ernie, I would really challenge you, if this is the part that you think is the most meaningful and relevant to update, go for it and put together another draft or work off this version, and really go to town, and we can have an open and honest and fierce debate about the merits of different kinds of approaches. That would be really helpful for us all, because you have that wealth of experience. I'm happy to hear that conversation and participate in it. I think on this immediate part that we're hearing, I don't have a lot of comment tonight, but I would embrace Ernie's and Jeff's call for more formalization of the process going forward.
Okay. I mean, we're in a formal process right now, but yes, certainly we can identify different tasks that can be done at different times by different people. I think that's great. That's how I like to work. Ernie, you had something to say?
I just want to make a simple suggestion, I hope simple, is that this stuff be presented to us instead of as a PDF, at least the language or something like that be presented to us in Word, so that, I mean, for me at least, either that or, you know, maybe there's a Word, an easy to get at Word version of it, so that I can, you know, edit it. Because I mean, a lot of stuff is fine, and you know, it's the stuff that I think that needs to be substantially changed. I would like to be able to put my comments in, and I agree with what he was saying about using, you know, about having it written out and discussing it. You know, the you know, what Brian was saying about having it written out and discussed. So I think that that's what I'd like to do. I mean, it's not just this section, but I mean, this one is an important one. Not that's all I'm trying to say about that.
Yeah, we're starting here as, you know, as a good place to start. I mean, this isn't nothing to do with the land use regulations or anything else here. It's just, what are the procedures? Who does what in the office?
And I think-
How does a person apply for something? What does the DRB do? So yes, this is where we're starting here.
But I think if it's provided as a Word document,
Yeah, that's easy. That's easy.
Yeah. that makes it easy to have something to say.
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, so if we're starting here, it'd be
Mhm.
nice to have the planning commission say, we're starting here. It would, I've been on this planning commission for decades. And recently, something other than the planning commission has been making decisions. That's my view. So if the planning commission would like to start here, then I'd like to have a motion. I'd like to have it offered up, and I'd like to proceed accordingly based on what the planning commission wants to do, not some unilateral directive or other paradigm.
Yeah, I don't see the unilateral directives or anything else, Jeff, but if you want to make a motion about something, then that's fine.
So Jackie, with all
Yep,
due
go ahead.
respect, the planning commission has not made a motion that we're starting here.
Okay. We've talked about this at other meetings, at other times quite a bit, but this isn't the first night that we've talked about this. We've had this document in our hands for 2 months, and we've talked about it 3 months before that. Back in June, this was laid out, I think was the time frame that this is what we'd be doing now. So Rod, do you want to make some comments before we talk about next steps?
Yeah, sure. I just want to, first of all, say that if I understand, I'm going to talk a little bit and then I'm going to sort of pose questions because I'm not really clear what's going on here. So, but then if people can help me out after I've talked through what I believe I'm hearing. So the first thing is from Jeff. If I understand Jeff Goodrich correctly, he's saying that there was no motion to facilitate the product that you are looking at tonight. In other words, there was not a motion from the Planning Commission that said something such as the planning director will provide a draft of the administration section of the future land use regulations. And so if it pleases the commission and that satisfies Jeff Goodrich's concern, then if you'd like to entertain a motion that says something as simple as the Planning Commission will look to or will receive drafts of sections of the land use regulations as prepared by the planning director, then if that formalizes this very initial step adequately for Jeff Goodrich, then that seems something that we could contemplate tonight. And then just quickly, sort of more scattershot, I think that there are some important practical as well as somewhat philosophically informed discussions to be had about the use of may, shall, and shall not that Ernie raised. So I actually think that there's a good point there. I think that from my perspective as somebody that's drafted multiple towns regulations over many years with direct reference to statute, setting the dial, if you like, if you imagine the metaphor of just setting the dial, sometimes may is appropriate, sometimes shall is appropriate, and sometimes shall not is appropriate. I wouldn't exclude may from the list of words that you could employ in the construction of these regulations. In particular, the very early section that Ernie was reviewing, I would contend that there is an obligation on a public official to facilitate and assist applicants in the process. I think it's an important dilemma and point to be made that zoning administrators sometimes misuse their power, sometimes facilitate somebody getting a permit when perhaps they should not, or sometimes prevent people from getting a permit when sometimes they should. That the role of the zoning administrator is a powerful one in certain circumstances, and it can obviously be misused. The use of the terms may versus shall and shall not in the section that actually any referenced. These are really facilitating kinds of tasks, and I think that you would find, if you read statute carefully, that in fact it's the opposite of thinking of the applicant as somebody that's an adverse party. And it's not for the zoning administrator or even the DRB to determine whether a party is adverse to the town. It's the role and the function of the zoning administrator and the DRB to ensure that there's a fair and open and readily explained process. I just want to take this opportunity to explain my role as a zoning administrator, for almost 20 years in Vermont now. So this is a affluent, well-educated town, and residents have high expectations about the quality of development and the quality of the regulatory process and its review. More than 80% of the applications that I received as a zoning administrator are on the back of a piece of paper that was initially used for something else and don't have straight lines. They have freehand drawings. Okay, so right there, you may want to say that one of the functions of the zoning administrator is to say, would you like some graph paper? Would you like a ruler? Do you need help measuring the distance between your property boundaries and your proposed addition or structure? How would you like me to do that for you? Do you need to take this measuring tape? Would you like me to use a GIS map to help you complete the application? What constitutes a complete application often goes to the standard and the quality of the application. So I just want to sort of draw your attention to the fact that as a zoning administrator, I'm not beating back Dollar General and Tractor Supply every day, trying to slip one past the town of Norwich and have a big box store built on Route 5. I'm trying to get people to actually draw a carport with straight lines, or at least the outline of a carport with straight lines, or determine that actually all they're really doing is refitting their kitchen on the weekend and they actually don't even need a zoning permit. So I want to just spend some time, typifying the day-to-day activities of the zoning administrator vis-a-vis the kind of suggestions that have been made so far, and actually say that in many instances the tasks and the duties of the zoning administrator are pretty banal, and on some level helping a person through the process that may or may not have English as a first language, almost certainly hasn't encountered a regulatory system like this before, and really has a reasonable right to expect that if they want to build a carport, they should be able to do that if they have enough land. And so it's not an adversarial or confrontational interaction from the outset. That being said, there are much larger projects, and there are projects of much more consequence. And of course, given Jeff Goodrich's background and his work in the region, he and I have spent quite a bit of time together over the years working through more complex applications. In fact, we're working on one now, which we should be careful, I guess, not to talk too much about. That'll be up on Thursday night. So I want to just point that out. And then the next part is the purpose of this document was to start as a springboard to get your reactions and to sort of work things through and keep that allegory or the metaphor of the dial going. Where do you want to set it? There's lots of things that can be adjusted here. There's lots of things that will need to be explained. I'm happy to sit and talk through the content of these regulations as quickly or as slowly as needed. That would be the function of a consultant doing this work. I've worked as a consultant presenting these regulations in Vermont. I've worked as a planning director developing these regulations in Vermont. I'm familiar with the content of this document because it's been approved in some form or not by other communities in Vermont. It's been reviewed by legal counsel and found to meet the requirements as laid out in the statute. And I have had feedback from planning commissions, development review boards, and zoning administrators and others that they like the way this is constructed. So it's not kind of just magically turned up. This is based on, more than, 10 years of experience in the role. And then so what would be positive for me is that we move as slowly or as quickly through the document so that people are comfortable with the contents of it and understand the implications of the words on the page. And that you as a group give me input as the person that drafted these draft regulations and the person that will maintain version control of any subsequent iteration, so that we can keep a track of what changes are being approved or are not being approved. The way we do that is religiously go through and make motions for every change, or probably more efficiently, at least at the first cut, is to go through, get feedback on where you're comfortable with the way the regulations are set up. If you point to things that you think need to be changed, I go away and I make those changes after some discussion. And then I come back and present you with a new version that incorporates those changes. That can either be done after we've moved further into the document, or it can be sit here and do the section without reference to the other sections until people are happy. I would say that at some point, seeing the context of the rest of the document might be beneficial to shed light on this particular section. But I think it's really critical that you understand that I am extremely uncomfortable and disinclined to circulate Word documents so that there's multiple people editing the same thing. From a version control standpoint, that's something that I don't have the time and resources to keep track of.
Yep.
So I prefer to have people provide feedback. It can be as schematic and simplistic as you like. Just open a Word document yourself, type in whichever subsection it is, tell me what you do or don't like, or what words you want to have changed. Print it off, get a ballpoint pen, up the margins, mark up the words, scan it, send it back to me, stick it in an envelope, send it back to me. These are all things that are much safer than 8 people having a Word version of the same document and it mutating into something else that we can't keep track of. So I think it's really important to think about version control from the beginning. And then just to say lastly, it helps, I think, if people start having a substantive conversation about the actual contents, the words on the page, rather than keep on talking about the process or keep on talking about their experience or expectations. And, I want to say that I'm respectful of people's experience and expectations, but I think engaging with the words on the page at this point could be useful. And I just want to lay that out there. On there'll be a report and so forth, and we can discuss what the schedule and the timeline is likely to be, or we can address those things now. So I see that other people want to respond, Jackie. So I'll stop.
I want 2 more comments, and I want to suggest a way forward. Ernie, you have a comment? You're on mute, Ernie.
I understand Rod's concern about version control and all that sort of stuff. But on the other hand, having to first of all, copy down go back, either go switching back and forth between views to type out your own version of a paragraph or a page or whatever, is more than a little cumbersome too. And ends up being something of a freezing of discussion on these matters. And so, I still have to sort of say, like I said, I understand what he's talking about and I actually can agree with him, but there's still got to be at least some sort of middle way, because, having to type out what you can read and you have to print off. I mean, we're getting to, I had to print off 50 pages in order to be able to read this, because reading it on the screen is somewhat difficult for me. This is, a little bit absurd. All the paper that you have to print off and so on, and then have to go and then type it. And I'm not able to do this full time. I'm doing this on my own time, so, and I'm willing to do it on my own time, but some amount of taking the ownersness out of it is reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that's what I'm asking. And I mean, like I said, I understand the version control issue. I can totally see what he's talking about. And that does have to be avoided, but I don't know how many people are going to actually be on any particular paragraph writing, how many versions anyone's going to be seeing on anything either. So
Okay.
there has to be a way of controlling that.
Jeff, you had a comment?
I do. I'm going to lower my hand. So I largely agree with Rod's comments. My chief issue, if I may, is one of process. And until about 3 years ago, the Planning Commission decided that it was, for many decades, was going to try and write regulations as a matter of ownership. And the benefit of the Planning Commission working on regulation creation was knowledge, understanding, et cetera. If I were to stipulate anything, I would stipulate that Rod is very experienced, very knowledgeable. I appreciate him as a zoning administrator, and I'm not refuting, the dozen towns or so that he's had involvement in. My experience in 250 towns suggests he's largely spot on. Process-wise, I'd like to say, let the Planning Commission say, this is how we're going to proceed, and then engage our staff accordingly. With
Jeff, did
respect
you
to
want to
the-
make a motion on that, Jeff? Do you want to make a motion?
No, because, I'm sorry. May I continue?
I thought you were going to make a motion. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I thought I was interrupted. Anyway, with respect to the question of consultancy, et cetera, my chief issue is the VSAs, the Vermont statutes annotated, have a role for the Planning Commission, which I would like the Planning Commission to embrace. And if we want to delegate that responsibility to Rod, who is very knowledgeable, and in my opinion, with respect to applications, largely very professional, that's okay, but let's do that. Let's not delegate that responsibility through some other forum. So my main issue, like open meeting law, is one of process. The last thing I want to do is undermine staff. I haven't done it ever, and I'm not going to do it.
Okay. In terms of the process and a way forward, Ernie's very concerned that he doesn't have a Word document that he can edit. Does anyone else feel the need to have a Word document that they can edit, or can they work from the materials that we have in hand? Yeah, Brian?
I don't have an objection to providing Word documents. That process existed until the very end of the town plan process. The world did not collapse. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
Mhm. Leah, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't have reservations. I will do what is best for the team. I can make notes on my own, or I can work on a shared document, whatever helps.
Okay. Melissa?
Yeah, I like Leah can work on either kind of document and make comments, so I'm fine.
I have another comment, actually.
Yep, go ahead.
One of my concerns for something like this, where we want to review something collectively,
Mhm.
is sometimes I've found that we need more time than what is in the agenda. So I think as part of the discussion process might need to be is we timeline as best we can based on either make conversation in the moment or doing preparation work beforehand so that we can plan out as best we can.
Exactly.
And obviously evolve and make changes as we can, but I worry about timing. We tend to just
Yep.
go beyond time.
Yeah, well, timeline was on our schedule too, what comes next after this. This was an introduction for all of us, all right? I think we should look at it that way. That's what it is. I think Rod's point about let's come in and talk about the content is important, and I'd like us to think about that for the next meeting. We've had the document in hand now for 2 months between now and the next meeting in January. You know, could we bring, 3 questions we have about the document, whether it's 3 sections, 3 questions, 3 topics, and if we could pull those together and organize our discussion around that, we could focus the majority of our meeting on the content of the document is what I would suggest for the next time, okay? Ernie, if you are sincere about providing edits, can you do that before the meeting so we have a chance to look at them? If you have some sections that you think are the most important, could you please, just highlight some of those, and so that we could have those in the packet and review it before the meeting. That would be extremely helpful. We can compare the 2 documents, so we're not trying to do it here on the fly when we don't have much time. But I think, committing ourselves to discussing the content next time, and that's part of our process, okay, and see where that leads us. See, getting to agreement on sections of this document, I think would be a good goal. Jeff, you had another comment?
I do. I'm going to lower my hand. I just want to encourage us in consideration of the Norwich Select Board upcoming vision, guiding principles, et cetera, to not use language like, Ernie, if you are sincere. I assume that Ernie is sincere, as I assume that Jackie is sincere. So may I encourage us to speak positively and affirmatively?
There we go. Okay. All right. So Rod, a couple things then for the next steps on this. I don't need a Word copy of this document. Can we get one to Ernie? Would that be helpful? And anyone else who wants one, if Brian wants one, whatever. All right.
Sure. Yep. So, yeah. So all I ask that you do, well, it's okay. I'll send you Word documents, and when you send it back, I'll just make sure that, there's an identifying header or something so that people know where the comments are coming from or something such as that. So that if
Yeah,
people
you need to rename. Yeah, you need to rename the document when you send it back to Rod, right?
it's
Like Ernie's comments, something like that, right? Okay.
patterns that can see at a glance that the comments are from one of the individual commissioners. Right. That's okay.
Good.
So if people want a Word version, I guess let me know, and I'll export it out. I should say that the document kind of originates in InDesign, so it doesn't start as a Word document. So they may introduce some weird formatting issues, but I'll export it to a Word document, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Rod. Leah, you had a comment?
Yeah, I don't envision that I have that many questions or comments. So my thinking was that I would write the comments for myself and save them for discussion points, either brought on up by others or I'll bring them up. Is that, I'm just asking the group there because I get the feeling that that's one option to take. The other option is everybody sends in all their comments so that everyone can view. And I'm guessing that we have 2 options. Just wanted to confirm with the group. Of either sending in our comments or holding, like for me, I only have a few. I wasn't going to submit anything. I'm just holding my questions for discussion.
Okay. I don't think it would hurt us in terms of spending, better time at the meeting or meeting focused on content. If we do have, 3 questions or, 2 comments or edits, I feel like, getting that done ahead of time, would really facilitate our discussion in the meeting. Does anybody other?
So we want them submitted. That's my question.
I think that would be helpful. Yeah, let's do that. And if we could do it, let me just look at the calendar here when our next meeting is. It's January 11th. And the packet needs to go out the 6th or the 7th, so by the 4th. To submit your comments or questions. Is that okay? Okay, or if there's just a section that you want us to review more closely, this doesn't have to be, is there a section you want to review more closely together as a group? Yeah, Rod, go ahead.
I just want to emphasize, I'm not expecting the audience to have the same kind of background and experience as maybe Ernie or Jeff or myself. And so I want to encourage people to just sort of ask very simple questions like, or just say, I don't follow this, or I need this explained, or why do we even have this? Those are all perfectly solid, good questions, which will hopefully lead to a more meaningful discussion. And then so I just want to encourage people that don't necessarily have a background in this to just feel very comfortable saying, I don't get section 102 through 105. And then me go, okay, so this is what it's trying to do. And these are the choices that we have. And we've set the bar here, but you could move it. You can move the bar up, you can move the bar down, and talk it through what the consequences are. And in that way, I would hope that you develop a little bit more of an affinity for the regulations and the way they work. And so that would be great if you just wanted to just throw anything out there. Don't be worrying about that part.
That's good. Okay, thanks for emphasizing that, Rod. I think that's helpful. And then, also in terms of process, we'll go through this activity in January. If we have so many questions, we can't get to them all or whatever, let's plan on this in February, right? Okay, it's a process. It is a process. And we'll see, see what it takes us to get through this, to feel comfortable and to make any changes we think need to be made. Okay, is that all right? Okay, all right, great. Let's move on to next item on our agenda then, the Affordable Housing Subcommittee proposal. Brian, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I have some to say, but I see it's not actually in the packet, the memo that, so I don't know, do others see it in their packet?
Yes, you know what, let's see. You mean the next steps investigation of the fire district lands, that document?
I don't see it. What page is it in? The PDF?
Mine got lost in the, it was because it printed on the back of.
Is it embedded in the hyperlink?
Yeah. So what we put together is not here. What Brian, my understanding is what Brian, Jeff, and I worked on is not here.
That's what I'm saying too, Jeff. And so,
not at the very end of the regulations. Is it the
No.
11.3 draft memo or something else?
No,
something-
it's a different draft, Jackie.
Okay.
yeah, so it's not the end of the world. We've already been talking for an hour. We still have more of the agenda to get through. Next
Okay.
time we'll have Jeff back anyway.
Okay. All right.
So happy to push it to I'm not happy, but we can
Yeah, I
push it
know.
to the next one.
Okay. All right. Thanks for clarifying that. In terms of next item on the agenda, just I guess just for my clarification. So what we should expect then is a different thing on the affordable housing. Okay.
Yeah, and it would be, I can't speak for either Jeff, but I think we'd be coming to you asking for a motion to acknowledge and recommend the memo to the select board and request that either this group or the subcommittee be authorized to spend a little bit of money on a technical consultant to essentially like kick the can down a bit further down the road and dig a little deeper on some technical aspects to see if some of these sites may be viable. And so that's the kind of the conversation and the request that will come at our next meeting.
Good, yeah, that was my understanding, so that's good. Do we order of magnitude, have an idea of the money? Because I think that's the first question the select board is going to ask. How much are we talking about?
Yeah, so Jeff will probably be able to share more details, but what Jeff Lubell told me to pass along was at the high end, even after like a second phase of initial investigation would be something like $15,000. So it's pretty small change, and we have and we can get into this next time, the Affordable Housing Fund. We'd have to do a little bit of work to adjust the policy we adopted for the use of those funds. But anyway, something to discuss next meeting. But it's not.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad we have a number. Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay, all right, we'll put that on the agenda next time. In terms of the next item on the agenda, updates and etc. Rod, do you want to provide a little update from your office?
I haven't been there very much. Yeah, everything's going fine. I've been talking with Max from AES, the GIS person that's doing the density study. We're a little behind in getting him some data, but it's going fairly well. And then I am reviewing the wastewater, the village and adjacent area wastewater feasibility study documents with Linda Gray and Melissa. And we hope to have a recommendation to the select board to go into contract early January for that. Once we've met and reviewed the documents. So that's moving forward. Apart from that, the level of applications has tapered off some from a zoning administrative point of view. And so that's the majority of the work in the office that's relevant here. The Historic Preservation Commission concluded their barn survey work, and that grant needs to get closed out. That's underway at this point. And they have elected not to pursue another grant in the next grant cycle, but to focus on other things. But that work was well received and is complete. The Conservation Commission continues to work on a range of issues and will be before the select board tomorrow night for review of their budget for the FY23 year. And that's about it.
Thanks, Rod. Any questions for Rod? Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, quick update. School district has published, as I understand it, a draft of consideration for Dresden rec fields for on-site wastewater capacity and cost implications. That's, I believe, a publicly available document. I just want to make that known.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. I also want to say I was pleased to see, I guess, in the DRB minutes that they were reviewing the path at the behind the Marion Cross. That seems to be proceeding.
Let me clarify that just so that people are clear the scope.
Right.
So what was approved for the DRB was a 63-foot long path that starts at the end of, or is proposed to start. I don't believe it's been constructed. Start at the end of what was the bus pad, a gravel and blacktop area, kind of elevation-wise above the school. So at the back of the school property, behind the school buildings, and then it would straddle a small swale or drainage ditch, and then head towards the wooded area beyond the school property, which is in fact town property at that point. The purpose of that was to facilitate access to school facilities that are located off the school property but are used by the school, particularly in the context of outdoor teaching and COVID-19. As I understand it, that the project was supposed to be constructed with volunteer help, and but the latest I heard, it hadn't started yet. But
Right.
the key point is it's very small.
Yep.
It's not part of an earlier discussion about a large trail through the what's often referred to as the Milt Fry Nature Area.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
That's
Okay. All right, good. And then, Brian, you're almost at the point of the final report for the childcare committee?
Yeah, that's right. It's a bit rough, but the meat is there. And so at our next meeting, we'll be discussing how to finalize the report for the select board and if and in what form the child care committee lives on, and what role the town plays going forward. So, I'd sum up what the last 9 months has been is we're all wiser and angrier. And so, I think the report will be really helpful reading for everyone here. And if you want to attend our next meeting, just in 2 days' time, I'd encourage it.
Great.
It's been really meaningful, if not yet impactful, to participate in that group.
Thanks, Brian. That's good. Okay, anything else on updates or reports? All right. Okay, we can move to our 6-month milestones. And we go up to December here, which is the month that we're in right now. And so purpose of this discussion, let's look ahead to January, February, March, okay? Talk about our process, where our focus will be. What we just talked about tonight was number 3 on the work plan, and we'll be continuing that work. I'm looking into my crystal ball. Certainly for January, probably February, maybe March, maybe a little into March. Does that sound realistic? And if we finish early, that's great. Okay. And if we need to go longer, then that'll happen too, okay? In terms of getting DRB input, question for you, Rod, is that something we would do again as part of this process, or is that kosher?
Yeah, I think actually, while there are policy considerations in this part of the document, I think that the people that live with this part of the document on a daily basis are actually the DRB and the zoning administrator themselves. And so I think notwithstanding the really, useful comments that have been provided tonight from various planning commissioners, I think actually it's important to allow the time for the DRB to look at this draft and to provide comments. And it's them that will probably have a pretty good sense of what the implications are of this kind of document. And so it's up to the Planning Commission. I mean, strictly speaking, from a statutory point of view, you can dismiss their feedback. But I would say from a practical standpoint and from a collegial standpoint, it would be really interesting to engage them around this section.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would also say very quickly is maybe less around other sections. So just
Of course.
discussions of
Yes.
changing the zoning district map, and
Right.
and changing the zoning districts and those kinds of things are deep policy considerations.
Yep.
That the Planning Commission should take the lead on as part of implementing the town plan. But because this is basically the procedural section, I think getting input and feedback from the DRB is really kind of key. So we have a meeting tomorrow, Thursday night, with the DRB. I can ask them what their appetite for the engagement is, and hopefully they'll find time in January to get together and discuss this section, and then maybe I can collect up that feedback and channel it back to the Planning Commission. So I think that's actually a useful path. It's up to the Planning Commission if you want me to do that. So if you memorialize that by having a motion or something, that's fine. Or if you leave it informally that's what I'm going to do, that's okay with me too.
Right, okay. Jeff, you have a comment?
Yeah, Jackie, I do. I mean, I think I appreciate what Rod just said. I just want to encourage us to keep the DRB in the loop with everything, regardless of their knowledge of the VSAs and land use regulations.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment on Rod outlined an idea there to introduce this to them, the document when he's with them tomorrow night, ask them for feedback in the January, February timeframe. Does that work for folks here?
Yeah, if we need a motion, I'll make that motion.
Leah, you have a question?
I would imagine, it's not a question, I would imagine as part of the introduction of this document, letting them know that we'll be commenting on it as well. So obviously keeping them in the loop, and they might know of changes will be likely coming as well.
Okay. Yeah, why don't we make a motion? Jeff, you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'm not sure how best to frame this, but I make a motion that Rod, that we support Rod introducing this draft document to the DRB at the earliest possible time.
Good. Okay, we have a second. Great, good. And then I guess just and then sharing the feedback with us, which is of course which would happen. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we got 6-0. That's great. Okay, so that anything beyond March, Rod, that you can see in terms of the land use regulation rewrite, anything that you would have as a thought for April, May, June?
It would be lovely from the kind of workflow point of view to feel like we're moving on to things that sort of could be facilitated by people spending some time outside, namely looking at the districts and looking at the individual zoning districts. But I'm kind of hesitant to say that at this point because it's still early days in terms of us moving through this administration section. And then the other part is to be remembered that we're going to do the idea here with this document is that it's going to incorporate the subdivision regulations into, so the subdivision and zoning regulations will become one document,
Right.
ideally referred to as Norwich Land Use Regulations. So I don't want to necessarily kind of close off people's expectations or use the timeline as a kind of a, I think Ernie sort of said something about a chilling comment or feedback. So I would propose that we look at how we're going in February, and then if it looks really strong and it's going well, then in the March, April timeframe, then we can sort of more outdoor focused activities, if you like. But I'm happy to see how other people feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on how it goes. So, but I guess so people feel informed and like can see the process here. After we finish this administration overview, the next thing we're going to be working on is the zoning districts. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
Okay, so everybody knows what's next whenever we get there. All right.
Right. So the key, I'm sorry, just to add a bit of texture there. So the key thing will be that the density study will be done.
Yep.
And the wastewater study will be well underway and be generating output as well. And the other thing to be remembered here is that the density study is not a particularly big demand on the planning commission's time, but at various points, the wastewater study probably will be
Mhm.
not by no means a distraction, but another activity, another task that you're going to engage with. So
And before I get to Jeff, just we don't want to lose this thought. So in terms of timing for the density study and the wastewater study, when the planning commission will start to be involved, if we had to predict.
I would predict that the density study, the outcome of that should be known in February, at March the latest. I'm probably the single biggest impediment to its progress at this point.
Right.
And so it's sort of a reflection on my workload as much as it's more than anything else.
Yep.
But the consultants are not the ones that are dragging their feet at this point. And then the wastewater study, I think that, we're yet to engage in conversations with them, but I would say that they'll be swinging through things in spring and bringing things to a close, hopefully early summer. But
Okay.
there's a bit of uncertainty there too.
Yep. Okay, very good. Thank you. Jeff, you had something?
Yeah, so this morning, there was a Keys to the Valley meeting, which is transitioned into the implementation phase from 3 regional planning commissions looking at housing, et cetera. And I just want to encourage a couple things. I'd like to see the PC reach out to Two Rivers and possibly other interests in Keys to the Valley. It seems to me personally that there, especially with respect to zoning, there's a lot of potential support that could come from that paradigm if we look beyond the borders of Norwich.
Brian?
Yeah, what is that? What do you imagine that looking like, Jeff?
Well, Brian, maybe we put this on a future agenda item. I don't want to hijack the meeting, but I think it's simply outreach to the RPC and Keys to the Valley about how we work together to consider housing needs like multifamily and some other things that this commission has talked about.
Okay.
And this is different than what the Affordable Housing Committee is doing already?
It's a different topic, Jackie, completely different, but I really apologize. I don't want to hijack the meeting.
Okay, all right, so we'll put that down there as question. Okay. All right, anything else on the 6-month milestones? Just give it, I guess the one other item that is a planning commission action item from the town plan is the Trails and Paths Master Plan and coordinating with the Conservation Commission and developing a work plan in 2022. So we have put off convening that group because of other responsibilities that Rod has taken on. And so Rod, would we say when the town manager is appointed might be the time that we would kick that off? Does that make sense to you? I know you're laughing.
It makes more sense than most things that happen today. I think that we can hit that probably February if we're lucky, or March for sure. I've talked with Craig. People are kind of keyed in. I think we can get something rolling there in the new year. I'm just not quite sure about their movements in detail, but yeah, we can.
Sure.
We can. I think the key thing for me is that I'm just kind of at this point under the wave that is the FY23 budget.
Understood. Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. We look forward to that washing over. Okay. All right. Anything else on the timeline before we move to vision and guiding principles? Okay. Brian, you want to take it away?
Oh no, this is Jeff. Jeff is the one who's always asked for this to be on the agenda. We adapted the bylaws
Yes,
last
we
time around.
Yes, we did.
I love this like a vision document, but I don't feel the need to make a motion to adopt it, I'm happy to abide by them, but if Jeff feels strongly and wants to talk about them now or later, I'm all for it, but
Okay.
I don't feel the need to take this on.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for your service. Jeff, you have a comment?
Yeah, my understanding some time ago is the select board made a motion to adopt this document and then subsequently did not adhere to it. So I've been asking for folks to embrace this document and adhere to it. And I would like us to embrace this document. I'd be glad to make a motion. And I would look forward to us embracing this document going forward.
Okay. Do we hear a second?
Wait, I make a
Oh.
motion to adopt this document for the planning commission. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Do I hear a second? Brian, you're on mute. Wait.
I'll second it, but then I have a question.
Sure, go ahead. What's the question?
Jeff, in your understanding, can you explain a bit what it means for us to adopt it? Just as an aspirational kind of vision, is there any kind of rulemaking we need to do, or we're just saying, by our vote, we embrace that these are a good way to behave toward each other? What's it mean to adopt it to you?
May I comment, Jackie?
Of course.
Yeah, so I mean, ideally, this should be part of our bylaws in my mind. But in the meantime, if we adopt this as guidelines for how we conduct ourselves, how we treat one another in our meetings, I think that's a great start. And if we decide in the future to incorporate it with the bylaws, fine.
Any other comments or questions? All right, we have a motion on the table. Oh, go ahead, Leo.
I agree that using this vision and guiding principles as our principles will help with discussions. I hope that one of the areas that I thought was a challenge in some previous years was when we disagree, or how do we live the process in the disagreement. And so I'm not saying we need to over process it and over discuss it here. I'm just hopeful that we live the highest promise of the principles in the times of disagreement that may come.
Okay. Okay, Leo. Anybody else? All right, we got a motion on the table to accept this document, the guiding principles and the vision. All in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, I think we got 6-0. Okay, thank you. Great. All right, almost last but not least, we need to approve our minutes from October 12th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thanks, Jeff. Leah, was that a second? Okay, any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, we got 6-0. Great. Any other business, anything we didn't talk about that we should have?
Sorry, Jackie. Yeah, I just want to spend a moment talking to people through the provisions for complying with open meeting law while we're also trying to fight COVID-19.
Right.
If that's okay, it's because it bears down on us all a little bit. So yeah, I'm conscious. Okay, so I'll just be as quick as I possibly can. So I'm not sure what you see when you look at your screen, but you'll see if you kind of scroll around, all the different faces, you'll see this public access kiosk image, which is a shot of the multi-purpose room from the corner. So boards and commissions, we're in the process of kind of refining and perfecting each one of these little steps because there's lots of intricacy behind it. But basically, there's the equivalent to a modern, digitally controlled lockbox that holds keys that's been attached to the front door handle. So it's a little bit similar to what a realtor would use when they go from property to show the house. They open a lockbox, get the key out for the house, and then put it back in, and then another realtor can come along and access the same house. So we put one of those in the front door. And each board or commission will be given an access code to access that lockbox and extract a key to the front door. Each board or commission will have a unique code, so we'll track what happens to the key if somebody takes off with the key and forgets to put it back in the lockbox. The lockbox facilitates unlocking the door, which at all other times remains locked. The door will remain unlocked for the duration of a public meeting that is on the Zoom platform, which is this one. And then if there is a member of the public that wishes to access this Zoom platform meeting, they do it via this public access kiosk, which is simply a computer in the corner of the multipurpose room. For reasons to do with social distancing of computers, the host person from that board or commission cannot be co-present in the public access kiosk area because the computers set up this weird feedback loop and squeal at each other and make the meeting a complete disaster. So we've socially distanced the computers. A member under open meeting law, a member of the board or commission must be physically present to facilitate public access. And so in this instance, a member of the board or the commission will then, once they've set up that public access kiosk, move with their laptop or their tablet to this small conference room, which is far enough away for the computers not to have a bad reaction to each other. And then they'll connect to the Zoom platform meeting from that location. If the member of the public needs assistance or help in any way, they will, of course, appropriately masked, make it known to the person in the building that's anchoring the public meeting, and they will provide assistance to that person. At the end of the meeting, the host or the anchor of the Zoom platform meeting in Tracy Hall will make sure that the member of the public has exited the building, and then they will use the key to lock the door, which is an effort in itself, and then put the key back in the lockbox and walk away. So we will be producing instructions on each one of these steps. Some of the obstacles right now is that we've repurposed Herb's old desktop computer, which is like geriatric beyond belief, and then there's some funkiness with the keys and a few other steps, but we're smoothing this out. So the expectation is that the DOB, the Planning Commission, and the Select Board and the Rec Council all have staff assigned to them. And so this function is moot for you guys. That's true of the DOB as well. But the other boards and commissions that you may be a part of, including the Energy Committee and Conservation Commission and so forth, do not have staff assigned to them right now. And so they need to learn these practices. So I'm encouraging you to be familiar with this process. And if you've got any questions, to let me know. And this is going to be in place until and unless the COVID infection rate goes to moderate rather than high or very high, which is currently where it's at. And so I don't know when that's going to be, and I don't know how many more variants of COVID it's going to be before we get there.
Yep.
So if you've got any questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Rod. That's much better than what we had going before, so I appreciate it. Yeah, it's good.
It took a lot of weird working through the issues, and we've boosted the Zoom account. Ironically, we now could hold up to 70 Zoom meetings at the same time, but because of open meeting law, we are constrained to have one meeting at a time because we.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that was good for other business. I appreciate that. In terms of future meeting schedule and agendas, next meeting is January 11th. After that is February 8th. So mark your calendars if they're not already. And in terms of agenda for January 11th, I have the land use regulations, administrative procedures. We'll be reviewing your comments, questions, and any other feedback that please provide by January 4th so we can assemble that and be most productive in our meeting. And then, of course, the Affordable Housing Subcommittee proposal, we look forward to revisiting that. Any other topics that I missed? Those are the two that I have. Okay, all right. If not, I just want to say thank you all for your participation tonight, much appreciated, and look forward to a good holiday season and seeing you all next year, right? Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.